Okay, so we would continue with the four pillars of English for specific purposes, and we have already covered needs analysis. We were doing learning objectives, and the session, abruptly ended because of some connectivity issues last time. So we were just left with the contentious issues in ESP, where we would be addressing some of the problems that ESP instructors might face in determining or in selecting and sequencing the learning objectives. Okay, and before that, we already discussed how curriculum is designed, and I told you that curriculum comes with you know uh, goals. Syllabus comes with objective, curriculum comes with goals. Like, curriculum is broader than a syllabus, and a curriculum may have many syllabuses or syllabi within itself. Similarly, um, curriculum has goals rather than objectives, and goals again are broader than objectives. Okay, so we already read some of the goals. If I share the screen with you, the goals of a program that's taking place in some university in Japan, and you would see that the goals are very broad. Okay, and from these goals you can derive the objective for specific EAP or EOP programs, right? But ultimately your program should attain these goals, right? So for instance, some of the goals that um, are here for a curriculum that is being taught in Japan, some university, we see the University Japan. So he says that these are some of the goals: develop world-class international researchers. Okay, and what would ESP do? With an ability to study, discuss, present specialist subject knowledge in English, right? And they should be able to resolve global issues, and they should become responsible citizens. Okay, and they should be in the workforce, which is dynamically changing and evolving, right? So these are, you would see that these are very, very broad. Okay, and from these you need to derive something for your EAP and EOP. Okay, so when we are talking about the difference in syllabus or curriculum for EAP or EOP, in EAP you need to have you have to make sure that your student should have a baseline level of competency in the target language. Okay, because you are dealing with English for academic purposes, whereas while you are dealing with English for occupational purposes, these programs are usually aimed for specific workers, okay, specific professionals. So there is less need for a baseline level of competency. Okay, so they are already some they have some level of competency, so you work with them. Now, as I told you in the beginning of this lecture, that what we are more interested in today, as we end this chapter, is the discussion on contentious issues. So contentious issues means what problems you might face while you are determining, selecting, and sequencing the learning objective for a particular ESP or EOP program. Now, what happens is, while you need to decide and you need to design objectives for other fields of specialization, okay? So your specialization might be in teaching of English as a second language, but of course your specialization is not in the subject of law or in the subject of medicine or in the subject of pure sciences. For instance, the abstract from the domain or discipline of chemistry that we read in the very beginning of this chapter. So of course that's not your area of specialization, while you need to develop objectives after analyzing their curriculum, their content that needs to be taught to them. Okay, you have to teach them, for instance, how to write abstract of their research articles or how to read the research articles. So one of the problems that you might face while you are analyzing the content or their subject content, that you uh, don't specialize, you do not understand everything about it, and that's not actually your aim. Your aim is to teach them language so as to help them become better in their professions, right? So what you can do is, when you face such challenges in ESP about the subject knowledge, so such challenges can be mitigated, can be lessened by careful planning, one thing. The other thing is, you need to stay in touch with the specialist of that subject. Okay, you cannot do it on your own. You need to realize that, right? So you need to be in touch with their subject teachers. You need to be uh, in touch with people who have experience of teaching English to in those departments maybe, or who have been designing syllabuses for them. So basically what I mean to say is that ESP is not an individual work anymore. Okay, you need to work as a team, and there will be people who would not be in ESP, or who would be not ESP professionals like you, need to be on your team for successful development of a curriculum or a curriculum design. Okay, so you cannot work in isolation, right? Because you do not have the subject knowledge, right? So that's why you can, talk to the students also, you can talk to their faculty. So this is one of the issues that you might face as ESP instructors or as ESP curriculum and syllabus designers. So you need to work as a team, okay, because you are non-specialist there. And then I would really like you to look at what NCOC data, as we read about the analysis, right? So some of the softwares that we named, one of them was NCOC, and it can help you in doing this, okay? So it appears like this. The NCOC data sheet appears like this, okay? So it gives you the frequency of the keywords, right? Number of times, and then of course there are ways of interpreting this data. Okay, now what I would like you to do as for your assignment, or as a part of your assignment, you need to find out an EAP course or EOP course, okay? And then maybe it's in the form of a published book. For instance, if I give you an example, Streamline is one of the books for language teaching, right? Now, when you look at the table of content, based on information presented, you should be answering this first question, at least. Okay, how would you describe the sequencing of language skills covered in the course using the names given to syllabuses or syllabus types, right? So the syllabuses that we have just done, the kinds of syllabuses, structured syllabus, and then we had notional syllabus. All of these syllabuses that we have done, you have to determine according to the content, after looking at the content, what kind of syllabus is this and what kind of skills are being taught, okay? So I have given you just one example of the Streamline series that I know as published books related to language teaching. But if you get hold of any other EAP or EOP books on the internet, you just need to analyze it. Just don't go through everything in the book. You only look at the table of contents, okay? And then just determine what kind of syllabus it is, and what kind of skills are being covered. We are already done with the kinds of syllabuses. In one of the tables, you have structural syllabus, you have skill-based syllabus, which is almost similar to the task-based syllabus. Then you have notional, functional, structural, all of these. Okay, so you would be doing this first question only. Okay, you would not be doing the second question as an assignment, and please do remember whatever I've assigned you for the assignment. So you'd be compiling it at the end of the term. Okay, so only first question from task 5.2, sequencing learning objectives. We're done with the contentious issues and the challenges that you face, and what could be the remedy, right? Okay, and this is the screen shows you the working with NCOC. Okay, you have some keywords, and then they give you the frequency of these keywords, and then there's a method of analyzing the results. Okay. So now we are moving towards the third pillar, which is very, very important. And I told you in one of the lectures that this selection of material and methods in ESP would eventually lead you in the making of syllabus, okay, or in the designing of syllabus. So whatever syllabus you read, you are actually reading the syllabus through the materials that are provided to you. For instance, this book that I've given you to study ESP is a material, okay? And that's really up to the instructor what methods she adopts in order to teach you ESP. So material is important. If, you know, if the material is not available, or it is a difficult material, or just too simple material, there can be many issues with selecting of material. So it is very important to decide the right kind of material, and then apply the right kind of method in order to teach that particular material. Okay, so that happens to be the third pillar and chapter 6 in your book, deciding material and methods in ESP. So as for the learning objectives also, we we determine who is going to decide the learning objectives. Similarly, material and methods, usually, if even I talk about a Pakistani scenario, these are basically and mostly and usually chosen by the administrators. Okay, in our case, it's the HEC, Higher Education Commission. Okay, when it comes to language center, of course, those are private language center. They have administrators and they choose the teaching material. Instructors or language teachers have little option in deciding material most of the time. Okay, so what happens is, the teacher can adopt it. There are 3 ways of dealing with this material. If these material are handed over to the teachers, what they can do 3 things to it. They can either adopt it, they can adapt it, or they can create the material. And by creating the material, it is not creating something new from the very beginning. They need to take help from the existing material as well. Okay, now my question is, what is the difference between adopting and adapting? Go to your chat and answer the question very, very quickly, and then we move on. adopting and adapting. So we gathered from the discussion that the difference between adopting and adapting is adopt is you take as it is completely without bringing any change to it, and adapting is need based. You make changes according to your need. Okay, so there are three ways of dealing with material and deciding about the material. Is either the instructor can adopt what is handed over to him or her by the administrator. She can adapt it, bring the changes as per the needs. And then the third thing is she can even create the material. Okay. But again, I repeat that creation of the material doesn't mean that she's going to um, choose something really new, which has never been taught before in the classrooms. Okay. So it would be a combination of adopting and adapting, but she needs to check what um, what was being taught in these classrooms before or in similar courses before. Okay, so we'll discuss this topic in further details, but what happens is we are talking about two things today which make one pillar. Okay, one is the material, the other is the method. So whatever material is chosen, and those materials are chosen of course looking at the objectives that we are already done with. So when the objectives are decided and the material is chosen, then comes the adjustment of methods. Okay, so you need to choose a method that go well with the material. Okay, and in doing this, in deciding about the material and method in your ESP classrooms, what you need to take care of is the limitation in terms of resources or time. Okay, so every time you would not be given time for analyzing things or for creating things which might take a lot of time. So there might be short courses. You would be asked to, teach short courses to people of particular profession, right? And then you need to check on the resources also. If you are adopting a method that needs, PowerPoints, or that needs recorders, or that needs other devices for teaching, and the institution does not have those, then there is a problem. Your method would not work there, or the material would not be successfully would not be able to be successfully delivered. Okay, so these are some of the limitations of time and resources that you need to check. Okay, so for instance, if you are asked to teach in our department, then what might be the limitations, what resources do we have with us. Okay, so if you aim to use some gadgets, your gadgets should be in place and they should be available and they should be allowed by the administrators, right? So what I want to say here is that the material and method should be decided together, and they should go together, and they should complement each other. There should be a good adjustment of your method with the material. Okay, so which method needed a lot of resources? Which method was it that needed a lot of resources? A good room, music in the class, relaxing chairs. Which method was it? Yes, go to your chat. Which method was it that needed a lot of resources? Yes, Suggestopedia. Okay, so for instance, you want to teach through Suggestopedia, but the resources do not allow you. Okay, so that means you have not researched well enough about the place where you're going to teach the material, right? if you have to teach translation, you need to have your material where translations are available or translations are possible, and then you would be taking grammar translation method with it. You cannot take a direct method when your aim would be to teach translation or through teaching language through translation or use of the first language. So you cannot use the direct method or the audiolingual method for that matter, right? So um, in short, your material and method should go together, should match each other. So the decision for your material should be made along with the decision with the method that you're going to choose to deliver that material. Okay. Now, the most popular material for teaching of English for specific purposes or for teaching of English as a second language are the textbooks. Okay. You know, the English that you have learned, English for academic purposes, every time you had a textbook, okay, or a series of textbooks, 1, 2, 3, 4, which you would study every year, right? Uh, and in the language centers also, as I've given you example of the Streamline, that's also textbook and it comes in series, okay. There are series from Oxford and there are series from other publishers, but there are textbooks to teach English. Very seldom it happens that there isn't a textbook, and even if different materials are chosen by the administrator or the instructor, those are also made available for the students in the form of compilation as textbooks. Okay, so there are, you know, advantages of using a textbook because one thing is it is very popular in Asian context. Okay, in our context, I have given you examples that we never learned English without a book. It seldom happened that teacher would bring other resources to the classroom than the book itself, right? For the reason that she was supposed to complete the syllabus, and the syllabus lied in the textbook. So we used to read and practice chapter by chapter of a textbook that was provided to us for learning of English, right? Besides it being very popular in our context, there are other advantages of using a textbook. For instance, just hold on. For instance, you know, you get sequenced material. Okay. You have a table of content in the textbook. To begin with, it is properly sequenced. Textbooks are more organized. Textbooks are, you know, compiled, or they are written after a thorough research. Okay, and much of the time, the objectives of the syllabus match with the content of the textbook. Okay, and the sequencing of the objective matches with the sequence of the contents in the syllabus, right? Other than that, textbook also give a professional look, right? And those are usually developed by professionally developed and people, okay, by professionals, I mean. For instance, we get books for studying English from British councils a number of times, and publishers like Oxford and Cambridge. So what happens is these books are professionally designed and developed by professionals, okay? So you don't have to doubt about its authenticity or its ability to teach the subject, okay? And these are really good for people who might not be very experienced, because, you know, adapting material and creating new material needs a lot of experience. Okay, so people like us who do not have a lot of experience in language teaching, textbooks are a real help, because they tell you a lot of things. It is actually a prepared planner for the teacher to practice and to deliver in the classrooms, right? Usually, when it comes to textbook and it's publishing and it's copying and it's buying by all the students in a class, the cost becomes less. Okay, because more the product, the cost would be less, right? If someone is creating something and then distributing it, the cost becomes more, right? Other than that, if you need to evaluate the teachers, like there is teacher evaluation in many of the institutions, so it brings uniformity. If two teachers are delivering the same material in two classes, it is very easy for the administration to evaluate the teacher's performance. Okay, other than that, it becomes easier for the instructor himself to evaluate the material. Okay, because the same things are being taught in other institutions, or maybe in one institution in two classes, right? So it brings in uniformity, and this uniformity helps in better evaluation, right? So these are some of the advantages of choosing a textbook as material for teaching ESP, right? Um, Other than that, there might be certain fields where ESP has never been um, taught before. Then the option that lies with the instructor or the administrator is to create the material or customize the material. Okay, now what is this custom material or customized material? This is basically need based, and this goes well with ESP. Okay, because textbooks have their own advantages, but then sometimes it may happen that some of the sections of a particular textbook are of not much use or need of the students that you are teaching at that time, right? So where does the remedy lie? The remedy lies in customizing the material. By customizing the material, we mean that selecting the material and deciding upon the material by analyzing the needs of the students. Okay, so there are some of the disadvantages when someone is customizing the material, selecting things from here and there. uh, you know um, they present a fragmented picture of the goal, right? The goals are really not clear because the teacher is selecting material from here and there on um, her own experience, on her own knowledge of ESP or of the other field that she is not a specialist in, right? So material gets mixed up also, and sometimes it is lost between the classes. Once the teacher has started teaching the customized material, then maybe there are chances that it doesn't go well, and she needs to change it. Then this custom material has a poor source of reference. Okay, and it looks less professional, like a teacher giving you handouts every day for photocopying, right? It does not give a very professional look to the material itself, in comparison to the textbook. Okay, and then the material are from so many sources and they are being compiled uh, for customized use. So things can mix up, and things get get confused between the classes. Okay, and there can be fears that goals are not attained if such fragmented materials are taken. and delivered inside the classrooms, right? So in short, textbooks are a better source, but when it comes to ESP, customizing material can be an idea. Okay, so before we start with the next session, I would like you to reflect on some of these. Now, think back to the different courses that you have taken as a student. Okay, did the instructor use published textbooks? If you recall, how did you learn English? Did you learn it through published textbook? For instance, I did. We used to have a series from Oxford. Or did they use custom-made material, adapted from published sources, or created uniquely? Okay. So if someone attended a language center, for example, Challenger, they use this kind of material, custom-made material. Okay, they have compilation and they have adaptations from the published sources, or they can even create their own material. What type of material did you prefer? So did you learn from the textbook, okay, as we had in the schools, or did you learn from some of the language centers where they use the customized material? So you don't have an experience of teaching except for Adina. So you cannot attempt this part of the questions, right? Here, you can do that. You can reflect on it. In the different courses that you have studied, could you predict what activities the instructor would use? Did they follow a set order, presentation, practice, discussion? How did the activities help you engage with the material? If you have experience of teaching, you don't have any experience of teaching, so just leave this one. Just reflect and think about and write down, how did you learn English? Did you learn it through the textbook, or did you learn it through customized material? And what kind of activities were there? And how did the activities go with the selected material, right? So I'm ending the meeting because it would automatically end in a while, and you are required to reconnect. Okay, after 5 minutes, you just reflect on this, and then we are getting back and we are reconnecting. Okay, so just not to end abruptly, I'm just ending this meeting, but we would be getting back. Okay.